The overall message is actually quite disturbing. The EO broadly misrepresents the DEI work that individuals, institutions, and communities are doing around the country to help people understand the impact of racism and sexism. The EO and other materials run counter to the widely respected view that being informed about racial and gender diversity, equity, and inclusion is essential to the healing and well-being of the country and important for high-performing organizations. Hopefully it's clear to you that the work we are doing in this department is not part of a malign ideology, but rather an attempt to create a more inclusive environment that's grounded in truth-telling about the world we live in, and most importantly, creating a departmental culture where all of us can feel welcome to express our ideas and viewpoints. This is an excerpt from the AAMC's response to the EO, which was brought to the committee's attention by Dr. Zackerston. It highlights the organization's belief that this type of training is needed now more than ever, and their commitment to continue and even increase such initiatives. We as a department wholeheartedly agree with this statement. Next slide. All right, now on to a few general updates related to the work of the DEI Steering Committee, and then we'll move to the efforts of each individual subcommittee. The DEI Steering Committee has met a total of 6 times since its creation at the end of June and has recently transitioned to a monthly cadence. The last 3 meetings were an opportunity for each subcommittee to present their strategic plan, which included their top 5 deliverables. We are now entering the final stages of preparations to present the results of our DEI environmental scan and needs assessment. Though we initially intended to use this time to discuss the results of the survey, we have opted to postpone until October 26th so that we can do so via a secure webinar, a platform that is felt to be more appropriate both by us and the legal department of the hospital. I think, as I've mentioned before, we are one of the first departments in the institution to take this important step of better understanding the experiences of those that make up our surgical community. As such, we are cautiously leading the way with the hope of laying the groundwork for similar efforts across the enterprise. You will all be receiving an email in the coming days inviting you to the event and asking you to register. We hope to see you there. As previously mentioned, we submitted our BSD departmental plan to Dean Polonsky on September 2nd. This was a 10-page document outlining our new DEI infrastructure, plans to enhance our climate, integration of more inclusive training and teaching, and an outline of ways we can improve our recruitment and retention practices. In addition, we detailed how we plan to better connect with DEI-related interest groups and engage with our community. Next slide. Just prior to submitting, we decided to include additional comments to the dean in the form of a cover letter. It was our feeling that this was an opportunity to speak directly to the leadership of our institution and request details of their overarching plan as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as that would not only help guide our efforts, but I think would have the intended effect of unifying each department behind a joint vision. Though I can honestly say that I do believe that the institution's leadership is very much behind our work, we have not yet received a direct response to our request yet. Next slide. One of the great things that has already materialized as a result of our new focus on DEI is collaboration with sections to augment their work. I want to take this opportunity to thank the section of otolaryngology, and in particular Dr. Agarwal, for involving us in this exciting event. To give you a bit of context, Dr. Ernie Moon is an African-American otolaryngologist who was at the University of Chicago for roughly 50 years. This year, Dr. Moon's endowed lecture will be given by Dr. David Brown. He's a pediatric otolaryngologist. Beyond his clinical accomplishments, he also serves as Associate Vice President and Associate Dean for Health Equity and Inclusion at the University of Michigan Medical School. His talk will be titled Diversity in Otolaryngology and Surgery, the Urgency of Now. I'm certainly very excited to hear from Dr. Brown, and I hope everyone will plan to attend on October 22nd at 5:15 p.m. Next slide. I did want to take a few minutes to discuss the use of gender inclusive pronouns. For some of you, this may be something that you've already kind of integrated into everyday use, but I think for some folks in the department, just based on getting emails from people, a lot of us haven't made that transition to adding pronouns to your email signature and or your Zoom label. We're not making this mandatory, but I would strongly recommend that everyone listening consider doing this. It takes all of about 5 seconds to change, but I think can actually have a pretty significant impact in sending a message to those who interact with you. These types of changes may be even more important this year as we enter a residency and fellowship interview cycle that is essentially 100% virtual. The addition of pronouns in this way does a number of things, including making it clear how you would like to be referred to and signaling to recipients that you will respect how they identify. In addition, this quickly and effectively normalizes the discussion about gender. I should mention that this is a change that everyone in the medical school did a few years ago. Pritzker may not have everything figured out, but I don't think it's a stretch to say that they're one of the leaders at this institution as it relates to multicultural affairs. So for me, it was an easy decision to make this change. I encourage all of you to consider this. Next slide. So the next few slides will be dedicated to the subcommittee specific updates. As I previously mentioned, the subcommittees are led by members of the DEI steering committee and further populated by roughly 40 members of the department split between the 6 subcommittees. Again, the subcommittees have been meeting since mid-July, with most of them meeting 1 to 3 times a month in between steering committee meetings. Next slide. Led by Rebecca Silverman, the communications subcommittee has really hit the ground running. The DEI website is continuously being updated with new content, including diversity, equity, inclusion events and resources. With that being said, we want to add more. We know that many of you are already doing some pretty amazing things in this space, and we now finally have a place to highlight your work. So please, please, please send us op-eds, peer-reviewed articles, podcasts, photos. We want it all. As many of you probably saw, we have also started sending monthly DEI emails. If there's an upcoming event you would like us to highlight, please try to loop us in prior to the 1st of the month and we will ensure it's included. We're also in the beginning stages of thinking through what our social media presence should look like. As we have mentioned a few times, we're in the process of reimagining the hallways of the department. One of the more exciting developments is a decision to update the walls, and more specifically, the 0224 conference room with faculty who epitomize the idea of breaking barriers. We are in the process of fleshing out the details, but there will be a nomination process whereby you can let us know who in the department, both past and present faculty, needs to be honored for their service to the department, service to the field, or service to the community. So look out for further information regarding that nomination process. Next slide. The Recruitment, Career Development, and Promotion Subcommittee, led by Dr. Brandon Baird, has been busy stirring up some good trouble. Their presentation to the steering committee on September 18th was a comprehensive look at the department's demographics, payment scales, and promotions. Needless to say, there have been some lively discussions about our current state and the direction we need to go. As a first step, Dr. Baird and Lene have been working with the Office of Equity and Access to create annual reports so that these important issues are evaluated regularly. Their initial analysis also made it clear that promotional pace of faculty members needs to be further explored. Next steps include the creation of best practices models for section chiefs to help guide faculty members through the promotions process in a more formal way. Next slide. The Community Engagement and Advocacy Subcommittee is also off and running. Their efforts started with the process of cataloging volunteer opportunities and working to create a structure for advocacy within the department. I did want to mention the voter registration initiative that was brought to the table by Dr. Zackerson and Dr. Jen Vigneswaran that unfortunately did not get up and running. The goal was to get as many providers and patients registered to vote as possible. Dr. Zackerson had obtained customized QR codes for UChicago with links to websites to quickly get people registered to vote or to have mail-in votes sent to their homes. Dr. Vigneswaran, in conjunction with one of our medical students, even had flyers made, and we were really ready to go. Unfortunately, HR denied our request for an exception to the hospital's non-solicitation and distribution policy. I mention this not only to ensure that the hard work of Dr. Zackerson and Dr. Vigneswaran does not go unnoticed, but also to call attention to the barriers we still face at the institution that is generally supportive of this work, but I would say a bit conservative in its approach. I mention this also to say that it won't be the last time we get rejected, but it doesn't mean we stop trying. Next slide. The education subcommittee has been busy already preparing our department for the upcoming interview cycle with implicit bias training for all faculty and trainees. Neurosurgery led the way on September 2nd, followed by the large session last week with the majority of the department. There are a handful of the surgical subspecialties that are lined up to complete similar sessions in the coming weeks. Thanks again to Dr. Reed for helping to coordinate. In the coming months, you can expect to see a number of additional lectures ranging from topics such as privilege and inclusive language. In addition, Dr. Anita Blanchard, our DIO, has agreed to do a departmental session in the new year focused on recruitment, retention, and promotion of UIM residents and fellows. This group is also in the process of reassessing current methods of trainee evaluation. Next slide. The Clinical Care and Access Subcommittee, led by Dr. Prakash, is continuing to engage with UCM leadership, focusing on potential and existing opportunities. Dr. Prakash recently met with Dr. Weber to discuss a range of topics, including different escalation of care pathways for uninsured and out-of-network patients. As previously mentioned, they are also looking to utilize EPIC and Tableau to examine current clinical outcomes through an equity lens. The group continues to expand its relationship with the Urban Health Initiative and is trying to get a better understanding of the surgical needs of the community and how we can perhaps do a better job of actually going into the community to provide care. Next slide. On September 16th, Dr. Angelos actually did kind of roll out a pilot of the cultural complications curriculum that Dr. Sua mentioned in her presentation, and that was during the surgical ethics discussion time slot. The session was well received, and similar content will be discussed in the months to come, most likely during the M&M weekly time slot. There have also been some preliminary discussions with the psychiatry department about training some residents and faculty to facilitate small group sessions to help support trainees who are experiencing stress and anxiety as a direct result of the culturally complicated care they must provide. The Wellness Ethics Subcommittee is also looking for improved methods for addressing instances of bias and or microaggressions within the department. Next slide. I spent the last 15 minutes or so discussing what we were doing broadly in the department. Now I turn to you to ask, what will your part be in all of this? I imagine that some of you are thinking, this is all great, but it doesn't really affect me. You know, getting involved and being part of the solution will probably look different for everyone. Protesting social injustice isn't for everyone. Volunteering on a subcommittee also may not be your cup of tea, but maybe building stronger relationships with the Pritzker pipeline is, maybe picking up how to be an anti-racist and reading it in your free time seems more appealing, or maybe, you know, start with committing to attending the Moon Lecture next week. All of the above are great options and represent a step in the right direction. This is a theme we will continue to explore, especially as it relates to the results of the environmental scan. That's all I've got, but I'm happy to take any questions and certainly welcome any comments.
Thanks so much, Dr. Dorsey. It's really incredible work that the whole team has been doing. And I think although we do bump up against some institutional policies and sort of stances like the Calvin report and others that sort of limit what we can do organizationally. We have no limit on what we can do as individuals. And we need to keep pushing those through. I was on a great call yesterday with all the department chairs and the BSD leadership that was led by Dr. Polonsky and really addressed a lot of these issues. I think we're getting traction in the institution, and there's it really does feel like for the first time we have some vision and momentum, not only in our own department, but in other departments that are aligned to this. So that's really terrific. Are there, let's see, open questions? Just a comment from Dr. Reed, thank you. Voter registration, why was voter registration considered a solicitation? This was we do not know the answer to that question, but we pushed back hard against this. It has to do with the complexities and nuances of separating issues that we believe are not solicitation, but that are community benefit, and what the unions believe they can do. And so it's a very difficult one, as Dr. Dorsey and I are learning on an almost daily basis, the intricacies and challenges of working within a large university, make things that seem simple like this more complicated perhaps than they need to be. Maybe there'll be an opportunity to move this forward. We agree. We considered voter registration to be non-political. The voter registration project was nonpartisan. We thought it was important for our local community to be provided with opportunities to register, but it was viewed otherwise by the HR and the broader institution. And these things are complicated, and we're learning more each time. Other questions or comments? We really look forward to this work continuing. If you have not participated on a subcommittee so far, but would like to, there is plenty of room on all of these. Please let myself or Dr. Dorsey know, and we will assign you to the committee of your choice to get involved in this work. It really is great to see the alignment and the momentum coming. I think we're really having a transformative year in the midst of all of this chaos, and maybe because of all of the chaos. Let me take the opportunity now to introduce Mr. Tom Jackiewicz, who is our new hospital president. I was fortunate enough to be part of the search committee that attracted him to come to our institution. It's been great getting to know him over the last few weeks and months. And we'll give him a chance to introduce himself to all of us here. He's on our call. Tom, welcome.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. So I just want to give a few opening remarks. And for everybody on this, I'll give a little bit about my background. So I came from USC, from Keck Medicine of USC, and I'd been there for 8.5 years. And during that period, we kind of grew from a very small medical center to a $2 billion organization. But I think the thing what I'm most proud of is the last 2 years we made the U.S. News and World Report honor roll. Before that, I had been CEO at UCSD Medical Center. And in my background, I have a different background than a lot of university hospital presidents. I've spent about 30% of my career in department administration. And then I went over to the School of Medicine Administration in a hybrid role with the hospital. And then I've been about 40% of my career actually being CEO of medical centers. And so I bring I think a different perspective because I did start out on the schools and in the departments and working very closely with the faculty. So in my 6 weeks here, I just finished up my 6 weeks. University of Chicago has lived up to everything I hoped it would be. I mean, the people have been great. The history here is amazing. And the collegiality, and I still look at this as an incredible opportunity. So I really look forward to working with everybody. I also want to take a minute and thank the faculty. And the surgical faculty have been incredible. I mean, what you've done to bring this organization back from the spring COVID pandemic has been really impressive. I have to tell you, we are in terrific shape as an organization, and we really owe a huge debt to the faculty. So thank you, Department of Surgery, for that. You know, in my first 6 weeks, you take a job and you wonder about, okay, I'm going to get reintroduced, especially during the time of COVID. And it has actually been incredibly busy. I feel like I've definitely dived into the deep end of the pool. A couple key things is the Southside strategy. Obviously, it's critical for our community and for us to have a successful partnership and strategy on the South Side. The Blue Cross negotiations, I would say, in your first month on a new job, probably the last thing you want to deal with is dealing with your biggest payer and dealing with a new contract. So that's important. I think we're going to get to a decent deal. It's not going to be fantastic, but it'll be decent. But I do feel like before we come up for renewal in 4 years, we really have to have a partnership with Blue Cross. This sort of contention, these contentious discussions are never great. And, you know, I've had a chance to really relook at our growth strategy. And I think there's going to be more and more conversation about that because I think it's going to be important for us to continue to build. The service lines, I've been very excited about that. There's a lot of energy. And I think it's one where, as we move forward, I think the service lines are going to be really key to our growth strategy. We did a U.S. News and World Report retreat, and that's been terrific. And then also we're looking at capacity issues. I think it's very clear that we're full, and if we're going to continue to grow, we're going to have to have additional capacity. If you ask me the one challenge we've had as an organization, I think it's our speed to execution. We spend a lot of time, I think, talking about things, but I think we have to really sort of ramp it up, and I think you're going to see that. You know, so I talked a little bit, what are some of the key issues? Obviously, growth. We're going to have to build scale. We're too small for this market, and we're going to have to look for opportunities to continue to build. Our Southside strategy, we owe it to us, and we really owe it to our community. Like I've said, 50 years from now, the one hospital I know that's going to be in the Southside is us, right? Everybody else, as you can see, even a big company, a big system like Trinity can pull out with the closing of Mercy, but this is our community. We're going to be here for forever. So let's really strengthen the healthcare system on the South Side. And we have to come up with a response to the Northwestern acquisition of Palos. I mean, to me, that is a real move. And we talk about a lot of the things that are important to us. Well, this is one that can really change the Southwestern dynamics. And that's an important market for us. And I think we're going to come up with some aggressive strategies in terms of how we're going to approach that. Now, the other thing is, I always question, like, people think, well, what do you do as president of the hospital? Like, what are you really responsible for? My mother even asked this question. So I thought, well, there are really you're responsible for everything, but there are really 5 things I think that are the president's uniquely responsible for. Number 1 is organizational culture. When I look at the physician and employee engagement surveys, I take that very personally. I think even in Chelsea's presentation about diversity and inclusion, these are all sort of fall under the president's responsibilities. Patient safety and quality, it's what we are, and it's such an important one. Me and Stephen Weber are going to work really closely, but that's got to be, we have to be the best, and we owe it to our patients. The patient experience, you know, one of the things that, you know, how we treat our patients, each and every one of them, is a direct reflection back on our culture. And it's one that I think we have to continually work on. Number 4 is top line revenue growth. It's really important. And it's one thing where, as president, you've really got to get out there and really work on that, because that takes a lot of effort, and always think about how do we continue to grow as an organization. And last, but definitely not least, is you got to watch the bottom line. Everything that we talk about and we want to do as an organization really depends on the medical center's profitability. It's how we build our academics. It's how we do all the initiatives. If we want to be the great institution that we all aspire to, it's important that we have the resource, and it's going to come from the bottom line. So those are the things, when I go home at night, the 5 things that I worry about the most, those are the 5. So Jeff, those were my opening comments. I'd love to sort of stop and take questions now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Please use the chat function, and we can either the Q&A function to ask a question, or just raise your hand, and you can then be allowed to talk on this. And maybe I'll kick it off. Can you mention, Tom, something coming from USC? And in a setting in Los Angeles that resembles our setting in University of Chicago, what strategies did you have experience with in LA that you think are things that we could adopt or bring to our Chicago Southside strategy?
So I think there are probably 3 right off the top of my head. Number 1 is we got to continue to build out our ambulatory strategy. And I think we really have to tighten that as a network. I mean, that was one of the real focuses of what we did in LA. Number 2, it's partnership with the payers. There are opportunities with bundled payments, and really sitting down with them in a really open discussion about some of their high-end complicated cases and why the University of Chicago is the best place for them to send those for their patients and for them. And those are very wide-ranging conversations, but there are real opportunities here. The payers are really looking for these type of partnerships. We don't usually like them very much, but they are part of our ecosystem. And we really have to work at that. And it also plays to our strengths. And number 3, we have to be very aware of our geography, about where our opportunities are, like Northwest Indiana and other places where we can be we can be the dominant player. Like one of the tenets that we had is no one should drive by us for high-end healthcare. That should be something that we look at all the time about making sure that nobody's leaving Northwest Indiana and going to Northwestern. If we provide that service, we should get that patient. And we really need to look at that. We need to really work with the local doctors and the referral networks to make that happen. So those are three quick ones, Jeff. There's a few others, but those are, I think, the major ones.
Those are great. Do we have other questions, please, or raise your hand from the panel? Everybody know how to do that. You can raise your hand in the Q&A function. Okay, I see a question that came up. The question from Dr. Vigneswaran: the Southwest suburbs seems like a great opportunity for growth for us. Can you give us any preview of the strategy to deal with the Northwestern acquisition of Palos?
Yeah, I think first, I think a partnership with Silver Cross, expanding our partnership with Silver Cross, and really looking at the physicians. Remember, hospitals don't refer patients, doctors do. So I think we see if we can recruit some of their doctors on their medical staff. And I think we actually have to really expand and really maximize our clinics. I was out there last week. I was surprised at the level of opportunity we have to build out our space in Flossmoor, Tinley Park, the fact that it's not on Epic. And this is where I think the faculty are going to be incredibly important. I don't think we have honestly leveraged the power of our faculty in our sort of care network, in our off-campus strategy. And I think that's one where I like to come back and really relook at it. Over my first 6 weeks, I've been surprised because the key to SC's growth was actually the faculty. The faculty got out there and they made a real difference. And we went as far as Bakersfield and Las Vegas because we felt like those were real opportunities to bring patients to Keck. And and I think we have probably similar opportunities here in Chicago as well. So I think that's, I was, at one level, I was really excited at the fact that we had unbuilt space. I feel like we're sort of inefficient. We don't have good IT systems out there, because I felt like, hey, this is our opportunity to build on it, right? If this was all humming, we would say, uh-oh, now we've got to find space and other things, but we don't actually. We have space to use. And what I would personally like to do is take the oxygen out of that market so Northwestern really struggles there, right? And at the end of the day, I think that's our best opportunity. We had the dean and I had a meeting with the CEO of Silver Cross, and she feels very similar in that. And that's also, I also think, where the payers can help us as well in terms of partnerships with them. So that's my topic.
Next question from Dr. Pinto. What kinds of ideas do you have to improve faculty engagement?
This is a really important question. It's one that after 6 weeks, I mean, part of it is that I'll tell you my USC experience, and we'll see whether it translates. I had a very close personal relationship with all the department chairs and faculty. And I think, and we had meetings included the faculty and chairs all the time. We met weekly to sit down and talk about critical issues. It's a partnership, right? It's a very close partnership with the departments, and hearing the direct feedback of what makes the faculty members happy, where does the organization torture them, and where can we actually fix those problems. And I think it's going to be, just direct communication. It's going to be mainly with me, with the chairs. I think we can use medical staff as well to get issues up through that are like sort of what I would refer to as the serial frustrations that the faculty have. And they're out there, right? And part of my job is to solve those, right? And to make this an easier place to practice medicine, where the faculty feel like they're really sort of part of the leadership team. I always refer to this story. So when I was at Stanford, my office was the CMO of the ICUs, who actually became the CMO of Stanford later. And he once gave me a piece of advice. He said, well, faculty may be 50% of the problem, but they're 100% of the solution. That little saying has actually been the key to my career success, is working really closely with the faculty to solve problems.
Thanks so much. Dr. Posner has his hand raised.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, Mitch.
Hey, Tom. With regard to capacity on campus, I am asked almost on a daily basis, since we've had a concept percolating for now almost 5 years, of whether there's going to be a cancer hospital / outpatient center on campus, and what can we look forward to in terms of a timeline?
So the up to date stuff is I met with Marco yesterday, and we're really dusting this off and putting this on serious, if you will. Maybe not warp speed, but close to it, because it's a really important one. I feel like it's going to be critical for our success and all the things that we want to do. We need to have a modern cancer center. So stay tuned. It's a high priority. I'm expecting in the next month that this is going to get some serious gas.
Thank you. Dr. Gundetti asks, can you update on Pediatric Enterprise growth and advocate affiliations?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and there's ongoing conversations. I don't have any great updates on that, but it's one where I think this is the potential here is really strong, and I think it's one where, with meeting with John Cunningham on a regular basis, this is obviously the top of mind conversation.
Yeah, we have a pretty good pediatric strategy. Mohan, I think we should do a better job in the department about perhaps getting some of these conversations going. There's a lot happening behind the scenes with our joint work with Advocate, and maybe I'll organize that with Dr. Kandel and others so that we can have a broader discussion of pediatric strategy within the department, and then we can have those discussions with Tom as well. Dr. Angelos asks, and I think this is a really important one that you'll have good perspective on, thoughts on our collaboration with Ingles. Although we're in the same system, we seem to have very little integration or cooperation. I know you and I have talked about this a lot, Tom, is the question of how do we really pivot to behave as a system?
Well, I have to tell you, I think it's a huge missed opportunity the way we're currently set up with Ingles. And part of my job is to bring that closer and closer. We're one system, right? We need to be sort of seamless between it. I'll be honest with you, the fact that we waited 4 years to even put in the same IT system is a little crazy, right? So we're gonna bring this in, and we're gonna make this really a part of the University of Chicago, because I feel like the reason why Ingles has struggled is because we haven't integrated it into the system. We've kept it at arm's length, and that's been a mistake.
Thank you. Dr. Prashant asks, as a department, how can we best add to the discussions with payers? Should we be focusing on costs, outcomes? What do you want the department to be thinking about in terms of positioning ourselves with payers?
Yeah, no, this is, and Jeff, I think what we need to do is sit down, and I should sit down with you, with our contracting folks, and talk about our unique services that we have and where we have some, and really begin to think about it and go back to them and say, we've got some great ideas. We think we can really help you. One example was we had seen in our transfer center some, and these were coming from United, Whipples that had already been done in the community, and then they got transferred in, and then sadly for the patients were in really bad shape. And we went back to United, said, these should not be done in the community. We need to be your primary, if you will, service place for Whipples, and we'll do a bundle with you. And I think it's us looking at our data and trying to figure out where we think there are opportunities, because we're probably seeing things. Now, the other thing is once we propose this, they will then come back with some other ideas and opening up the dialogue. But I do think we have a dialogue internally, and this could be with us in the section chiefs sitting down thinking about where we think there's some opportunities, because the payers are very open to our ideas. The other one that we pitched at SC that United also took off on was on epilepsy, because we had heard from our epilepsy physicians that patients were not getting good care in the community. They were going to a lot of the emergency rooms, and it's very hard to get specialty epileptic care in Southern California. So they made us a center of excellence there, and we began leveraging telehealth and working with the community neurologist. It was a win-win. It was, at the end of the day, we improved care, big win with the payer. And I want to say the contribution margin to the organization was between $2 and $3 million, because we were getting more high-end care earlier. So it's a win-win. So these are the kind of things, we need creative thinking though about where we think there are opportunities.
Great.
And I'm sure the faculty know where those are.
Thanks. Dr. Dorsey had a question.
Yeah. Hi, Tom. Thanks for joining us this
Hey,
morning.
Justin, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. One of the things you mentioned was the importance of the engagement survey.
Right.
At present, there's not really an in-depth exploration of DEI-related issues in its current forms. I sit on the BSD Diversity Faculty Committee, and there's a lot of interest from other departments in the instrument that we created for the Department of Surgery. Are there any plans to kind of update the engagement survey to include DEI related questions to get a better understanding of kind of the true experience of people that work here?
You know, so the first thing is we haven't had a conversation yet about it, but I think it's really important. It's something that we should talk about because I think it's important. We're going to do this. I want to make this inclusive and get the kind of information that we need as an organization. Because sometimes it's really hard to read, but it's really important. It's an organization, you've got to get that, and you've got to really embrace what your people are telling you. And I will tell you, I read every single comment. I sat there on those comments and I read all, and it's tough, right? I remember early USC surveys. It was painful. I had like 100 pages of comments. And by the time, you go through like a bottle of wine by the time you're done with it. But you understand your organization and what you need to tackle. So let's talk about that, about what we can include, because I think it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be great. We're running out of time, and there's a number of other questions. I'm going to just pick and choose. How do you believe we can improve cooperation and integration between the BSD and the hospital? This is from Dr. Agarwal.
Well, I think we're already working on it. Because, I firmly believe in the one organization principle. We're all on the same team, right? And we have to act like it. And, and the dean and I have talked about this. I want to sort of erase all these false barriers, and the silos, and really get us to work, work together. And I think it's one where, stay tuned. This is one that I am personally taking on, and I know the dean's right there with me, and because right now we have too many barriers. We also have an organization that says no too much, right? We need to get to be more of an organization of, yes, we can do this, right? And I've told this to the dean. I said, part of the challenges we have is we have a lot of people that can say no, and the things never come to us, and we don't even know. And so we got to move away from that. If we're going to grow and be the organization we want to be, we got to say, hey, let's get to yeses here.
Thank you. That's great. I think because for the sake of time, we're going to have to pause this. There are some questions that we will copy and hang on to in the chat, and we'll try to get back to you on some of these questions, and maybe we'll be able to get something out by that. A lot of it has to do with our regional strategy that you've mentioned, counterweight to Northwestern, responses to the Mercy closing are out there, satellite hospitals in Northwest Indiana. This is all coming, and I know that I'm engaged, and a couple of other chairs are engaged with some new board subcommittees that are specifically working on this regional strategy, in particularly in response to events like Palos and Mercy. So stay tuned on that, and we'll have more to say at the next faculty meeting about that and in other conversations. Maybe we can give one last question, because Dr. Ferris asked, and I think this is a very important one. You mentioned the importance of culture in an institution and faculty engagement. What are the that are essential to a thriving culture, and what changes are you hoping to see here at UCM?
So we have to be, the most important thing is open and transparent, right? In an honest organization where people can actually speak their mind and we react. And if you get to open and transparent, honest, and an honest culture, it is it's really amazing. But the underpinning of culture is trust. We all have to trust each other that we're going to do the right thing. And if we talk to each other, and I would say right now as an organization, we're a bit challenged on trust. And when I talk about one organization, part of where we're going to get there is we all trust each other, that the BSD and the departments in the hospital, we all trust each other. We're all working toward the same end, and we can be completely open and transparent with each other. We get there, it'll be fantastic, because the dialogues that we get, the dialogues that we have will be incredibly inspiring, and we'll move the organization, and we'll all have a better time at work, which is also important.
Tom, I want to thank you so much for being with us. These are all really good questions, and I thank you. We are sort of running out of time. Tom, you're welcome to stay on for the last 3 minutes, where we're just going to introduce some new faculty that have joined since
I'd love to stay for that. That'd be fantastic.
Meeting. So if we could just pop over, Julian, to the back to the slide deck. I just want to formally just welcome to the department. Normally, we like to do this all in person. To get to the that, can you keep going? There we go. We've had a number of faculty join us since July, and it's really fantastic, because when we first were in the middle of the COVID catastrophe early in the spring, we thought we weren't going to be able to move forward almost anything, and we've been able to start to make breakthroughs. And as Tom mentioned, it's because of the great work that the Department of Surgery has done in bringing back our volumes and bringing back the financial health of the organization, that we've been able to at least break through on some of these recruitments, which I think are very exciting and will continue to move forward. I'm just going to go through all these. And Luke Reynolds joined us in urology. He is interested in complex stone disease. He's a Canadian by training. Don't hold that against him. He has hit the ground running. He's been working incredibly hard. If you look at the OR schedule, it's amazing how much he's already doing. He's an expert endourologist, and we welcome him. Next, Parth Modi is joined us as well in urology. Parth comes from via Michigan Urologic Oncology Fellowship. He's got a great interest in health services research. He's an expert in complex open and robotic surgeries for urologic malignancies, joining Dr. Piyush Agarwal and our incredible team of urologic oncologists, Dr. Zagaya, Dr. Shalha, and really having quite an impact, and he's going to get his health services research going here. So welcome to Parth. Next. Next slide, Julian. Can you advance? Are we stuck? In plastic surgery, Dr. Summer Hansen joined us. She is a microsurgeon and expert in reconstruction. She has been for the last several years down at MD Anderson. She is a surgeon scientist of the highest order, and she is joining the section of plastic surgery, getting her research going in adipose-derived stem cell therapy. We're very excited about her. She's an outstanding clinician as well, and she's just joined us recently. Welcome, Dr. Hansen. Next. Everybody knows Luka Pachavasek in vascular surgery, a Pritzker graduate, MD, PhD with an advanced degree in chemistry and physics, and his research accomplishments already as up to his fellowship years exceed many associate professors. He's been our vascular surgery fellow for the last 2 years, and now he's staying with us on faculty, getting his lab going, studying biomechanics of surgical anatomy and opportunities in developing new biological interfaces. We're really excited to see what Luca's going to be able to accomplish. Next, we have Dr. Kinga Scourin, who finished her colorectal fellowship with us after training here forever. She's not quite a lifer, but pretty close. She did her undergraduate medical school surgery training and her fellowship with us, and now she joins us on faculty. She is really a well-rounded and triple threat outstanding teacher, won all the awards in our department as a resident, including the Frimpong Award for exemplary character and team spirit. She's also interested in health services research and ethics, and she's also hit the ground running in colorectal surgery. Next. We want to welcome our newest arrival, Dr. Ralph Barth, in transplantation. He came to us as a tenured professor and chief of the Division of Transplantation at the University of Maryland Medical Center, an outstanding, very accomplished liver surgeon, directed the liver and kidney transplantation program there, has also hit the ground running here with interests not only in clinical transplantation, but also in research and collaborative research in transplant immunology. He is the new director of the liver transplantation program and associate director of the Transplant Institute, together with Dr. Fung and Dr. Charlton. We're really excited to have Rolf here in the department. Next. Also in transplantation, we are really thrilled that Angie Perez has been able to stay with us as a clinical associate. You know that she's just completed her abdominal transplant fellowship with us. She's been here for about 3 years now and has become a very familiar face in our department. We're really interested in her ability to support and grow the transplant team. And we're thrilled that she's been able to stay with us. She's got many academic interests as well that we hope to foster. So welcome, Dr. Perez. And I think that is the list of the new ones. We have a number of faculty accolades. As always, we sort of run out of time. We're not going to be able to go through them, I think, Julian, for the sake of time. We will circulate them. It's a little slide deck that's really amazing to look through, not only talking about our accomplishments on U.S. News and World Report, best doctors, but also the many accolades and academic accomplishments that our faculty have had in all the sections of the surgery. So the work that the department is doing, I couldn't be more proud of. Everybody's really coming together and figuring out how to get ourselves back to a new normal. We're clicking on all cylinders. We are the first quarter of this year, we are just ahead of where we were in 2019. So not only have we come back and killed our budget for the first quarter in terms of surgical volumes, but we're even beating last year's numbers. We aren't quite where we need to be in terms of our original growth targets. We're still lagging behind that, but I think our trajectory is really fantastic. So thanks everybody for their hard work. And with that, I think we can dismiss everybody and get back and start the day. Thanks again to Tom for joining us. Thanks again to Dr. Dorsey for that great and focused presentation on our work for the DEI Steering Committee. And let's go hit the day. So,
great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.